I'm Diego Cordovez.
Adam Schoenfeld.
Welcome to The Scoop, brought to you by Full Tilt Poker. We had David Benefield on last week.
The ratings were strong, so I think it justifies another session.
It got high ratings. He's got a very good nickname, Raptor. And so we're going to bring him back for part 2. If people missed part 1, it's on Card Player TV. And make sure you watch part 1 first. Otherwise, you'll be completely lost.
One of the good things about your blog is that you're so honest about your struggles within yourself to address these questions. And it's not like there is any definitive answer to any of these questions. You went to see Tommy Angelo.
I did.
Can you tell us what that's all about?
Well, I was looking for a poker coach on the life aspect of poker. Mm-hmm. I mean, I felt like my game was solid enough that I didn't really need to go see a specific coach for that kind of thing. But I guess I had problems taking... I had problems separating poker and my life. Like, if I had a really terrible session, lost a bunch of money, I'd go hang out with, my girlfriend or something. I'd be a little down. I wouldn't be as, friendly. People like, hey, let's go out for drinks. I'd be like, meh, all right. And then, I'll go, and I just wouldn't be as much fun.
Right, you found yourself treating your girlfend not necessarily terribly, but just not the way you want to interact with her.
But not the way I want to treat her. Like,
I mean, her.
Right,
Right.
Yeah, all right. But, just things like that, small things. And I just felt that was kind of just detracting from my overall, happiness in life. And I didn't like that. So I went to see him, and, helped a lot. We worked on a bunch of stuff, meditation. I started doing yoga. And it just it slows everything down, it gives you time to just think and be aware and try to stay more in the present and focus on what's actually happening as opposed to what happened 3 hours ago or what you have to worry about tomorrow. And, I just kind of changed my overall way of thinking. I think it did help a lot.
Tommy's got a book called Elements of Poker, which is excellent, which addresses, it doesn't tell you how to play specific hands, even though there's some strategy in there.
Yeah, it has a little strategy
but
in it.
It's more about the right mindset to do this as a living for a long period of time and maintain some semblance of balance and some semblance of normalcy in your life. It's really interesting.
It's good. It's a book that hasn't really been done before, and it hits on a lot of things that are very important to, living this lifestyle and staying with it.
If you're willing to reveal, how does the sessions with Tommy work? You just, like a therapist, you talk to him, or does he observe you play?
The first day, we met up, we had dinner, and we just kind of got to know each other.
You hadn't met him before. You contacted him?
No, yeah. I talked to him on the phone a couple times. We emailed back and forth, but I'd never met him before. We met up. We had dinner at Cheesecake Factory, and then we played like a 4-hour live session. And then I went home. I was like, "What's he going to say tomorrow?" Because he watched me play live, and next day we came back. We talked about some live stuff that I could do differently, and that was actually pretty cool. I wasn't expecting that at all. And we just kind of talked about things I could take away from the table. Do before I play, after I play, that kind of thing. It was really helpful. It wasn't really what I expected, but it was exactly what I needed. So.
Had he done this before with anyone else, or were you his first project, so to speak?
He did it. He's done it before with a ton of people, but this is the first time. This is the first time I've ever done anything like that. Right. But I had really actually Phil Galfon did this thing. I guess probably like 2 or 3 years ago. It was a while ago when he first started playing cash games, and he said it was great, and he just had enormous respect for Tommy and his coaching thing, and it worked out great, and I was really happy with it too.
So exactly how much per hour has that benefited you? I need, an amount.
I've always thought, and there isn't really one book that addresses it. I think that Barry Greenstein's book gets at it in the sense that the difference between, raising with ace-jack or limping with ace-jack is not that big. The difference in terms of, avoiding tilt.
Right.
Staying in it for the long haul, having the right frame of mind, having discipline in your life, not succumbing to all the leaks that are related to poker.
Yeah.
That's the difference between someone who's a pro for 20 years or someone who has talent but flames out.
Right.
And now he has a few strategic examples in the book, but when you read it, you realize what really matters are all the different character traits that he lists. Now, this is different, but I think it gets to the point that in the end, real success long term has a lot more to do with just how you manage your career than optimal play of a certain hand in a situation might make a 0.01% difference over the course of the year.
So one of the main premises of Tommy's book is just always playing your A game.
Yeah.
And the things you can do to bring yourself back to your A game. A lot of people they can be the best poker player in the world if they play their best game, but they just get away from that so often that they can't be winners long term.
Chip Reese would often say that when he was off his game, he might go to his B game, but he didn't have like D through G.
No, right.
But a lot of guys have,
Absolutely.
G and beyond.
And I think he also recognized when he was playing his B game, or if he was in danger of slipping to below the B game.
minus, yeah.
And that's the other aspect. I mean, if you have a E game, that's fine, as long as you know to quit.
Right, yeah.
Guys are playing their E game convinced they're still playing their A game. That's the bigger problem.
That's the best opponent ever.
Right. Get them stuck a few buy-ins. They still think they're playing great, complaining about a big suck out or whatever. And
Absolutely. Just falling into all those traps. And, some guys I really respect, even though they're not good for our own profit, which is they recognize when they aren't at their best and they say, okay, I'm quitting right now.
Right.
The ideal would be, of course, getting back to playing great. But if you can't do that,
go do
second best is do something else.
So after you go to college, do you see yourself as a poker player long term, or do you see yourself?
I see myself as being a casual poker player for the rest of my life. I'm always going to want to come play, the main event at the World Series, and a few tournaments here and there. I can see myself every summer coming out and playing, whichever events that I'm interested in, or traveling to, wherever for an EPT, that kind of thing. But as far as playing full time for the rest of my life, no. It's just not something I want to do. I want to be able to. I don't know what I want to do, but I want to be able to maybe teach. I think I'll like coaching baseball. I just want to have all these options to me. And poker's great in the sense that you don't have to do it full time.
Right.
You can pick it up.
There's you have so much flexibility,
and you can give yourself so much freedom while playing part time.
Well, with your ability and at the levels you play, you can have a very good living on very few hours if you continue to play well.
But, the nosebleeds aren't really, I don't think they're the place to just play kind of casually. I think to play in those games, you need to be playing full-time. You need to be staying at the top of your game, or else, you have to, it's about such small edges. And, game selection's huge in those games. And if in the future, I see myself playing much smaller, just kind of like maybe 12 tabling 5-10 or something. Because you can still make a ridiculous
casual 12 tables.
I was going to say a relaxing 12 tables.
You make a very good point.
But it's just something that the competition's going to be less stiff. You're not going to have to stress as much about a big downswing. And for a casual player, I think it's much better for an overall life happiness kind of thing.
See, what you say makes a lot of sense. I would think that anyone in your position, and there are others who are your peers who are comparable, would think in those terms. Want to keep playing, but not playing with the same intensity and the same number of hours. But can you think of any guys, who are your peers, who their mindset actually is it's so intense about it that you can see them playing for a long time at the highest levels, where they just thrive on that competition and that. Because I would expect the majority to be like you. I'd be like you if I was in your position, your age. But there's always that one or two guys, who they may be around forever just doing that.
Some of those guys will be like one of those guys will be the next Doyle Brunson and just play for the next 60 years.
Sure.
And then a few select others will get really good educations and do other great things.
Right.
And others will just, be like grinders like ourselves.
It is interesting. I think a lot of people underestimate the last, maybe not so much recently, but certainly for many years. Phil Ivey put more hours in than anybody. He'd be playing every day, and long sessions.
And from the time he was 16.
Yeah, and he really was obsessed with playing, with getting better.
I think he just loves games. He loves winning.
He loves the action.
He loves the action, and he also is obsessed with becoming the best, and like they say,
that mentality
if someone
made him the best.
If you're not playing, if you're not practicing, someone else is. If you're not playing, someone else
absolutely
is, and but that's what makes him, in a sense, more unique than other guys who have talent, but who maybe have more balance, for better or worse.
Yeah, it's true.
This is a really interesting quote that I got directly from your blog, and you write, "Is it possible I really just don't care about anything?" Do you remember writing that?
I'm sure I have.
That's like you're going to study the great books. Like in literature, they call that ennui, which is just the sense of boredom with everything.
Right.
And I hope you can find an answer to that, because I'm still trying to answer that question.
I think a lot of us are.
Yeah.
Well, maybe the question is whether introspection is a positive trait for poker success or
not necessarily.
Or a negative trait.
It can hurt and help.
I always think, certainly in sports, thinking is a negative for the most part. I mean, you have to just do all your thinking off the court or off the field, and then when the people who are thinking or who are even overly reflective off the field, why am I doing this, or could I have done better, as opposed to just putting it behind you and letting your muscle memory take over. I think in poker, to some extent, you have to, away from the table, spend time thinking, what could I have done better, can I improve?
You definitely have to
do
that.
Too much introspection becomes a distraction.
If you
too much
do that too much, you start to internalize it too much, it can really start eating at you, and it's like, oh man, what if I did this? I should have done this, and then you're just constantly going over that in your mind.
I mean, you could become like a Rick Ankiel or like a David Duval, and I don't mean to put those guys down. It's like, I think they're too introspective. Is why these are famous athletes who lost whatever they had. And in poker, I think you could do that too.
They've always said the guys who develop that mental problem, which suddenly the brain just takes over and locks up whatever process existed before, and people aren't able to swing a golf club or throw a baseball. Those guys, they have in common that they were among the more thoughtful, more intelligent players, overly so.
Yeah,
and
I think I kind of went through that, and that's why I sought help from Tommy, and just, I guess, kind of bring me back to just thinking about what was actually happening then, because I did let all this stuff, from the past or previous hands or whatever, kind of influence my play maybe a little bit more than I should have, and just kind of influence my life, and I didn't like that. So
I don't know if it applies to you, but I think not that it couldn't apply, but just whether you've thought in these terms, but I think a lot of people start to question, why am I devoting myself to poker? It used to be a generation ago that most of the guys who went into poker, that was more or less their only avenue to make that sort of money.
Yeah.
They didn't, for whatever reason, they just didn't have the entree to a career that would be comparable in terms of making money. Now, guys, who are young guys who are making a lot of money, they could go into another field and make a lot of money also, and they actually have access to that field. They have the right background, the right context, education. And then guys are start wondering, well, shouldn't I be doing something more meaningful than just playing poker? Once you start thinking like that, it's very hard to play poker.
Yeah.
Did you go through that at all, or is that...
I mean, I'm kind of going through it right now. I mean, to be honest, that's why I'm looking for all these other things to, kind of, I guess, bring balance to my life. I mean, poker's a great thing, but, if it just takes up all your time, that's the only thing you do, I mean, are you really going to be that happy of a person? I mean, I don't know. I don't think I would be. I need to be able to, get up in the morning and go do jiu-jitsu or, hang out with my girlfriend or, that kind of thing. I have to have balance to be a happy person. And
Aside from all that, one thing that exists now with online high-stakes poker is that the swings are an order of magnitude bigger than anything that ever existed in the history of poker.
It's not even real.
And
it's ridiculous.
We know plenty of guys we've talked about before who they're fantastic players and they have big bankrolls. They just won't play those stakes because the swings are just too much. Now that's more guys our age.
But Eric Seidel told us, and he could certainly afford to play in the biggest game.
Right.
But he told us he just can't emotionally or just rationally take the swings.
It's just it's really ridiculous. I mean, there's $500,000, $600,000 pots that are happening online that take 28 seconds to. It's unbelievable. Like
those chips just shift. And
it's like.
I mean, so
literally click a mouse, lose a house.
So how have you? I mean, is this part of? I mean, aside from the life balance, is this something else that you've had to deal with, or are you just naturally able to?
It's something that I don't think I'm anywhere near as good as I should be. I don't play the nosebleeds as much as, Phil or Tom or Z or Hack or whoever. I sit there and wait until it's a really ridiculously good game or someone in there is, on some kind of massive life tilt or whatever, and that's when I play.
Mm-hmm.
I can't just sit there and just deal with those swings. I have to have just such a big edge that my variance isn't going to be that bad.
That's interesting.
Because I don't think I emotionally can handle swings like that. I just got out of a really big downswing.
Do you think you were able to when you were younger, or has it always been something?
I've gotten immensely better at it. I think it's just as you go up in stakes. I remember when I first started playing sit and goes or whatever. I started with $10 sit and goes. I was like, man, if I lost my $50 that I put in here, I'd be just crushed. But I mean, you do better. You improve your game. You make more money. You move up in stakes, and it's just as you grow as a poker player, so does your threshold of pain, I guess, as far as how your monetary losses, how much you can handle.
I mean, the $500,000 no limit game, like that would have been unthinkable 3 or 4 years ago.
Unfathomable.
But now it goes every day.
Yeah, they didn't even have 10-20 no limit, 5 years ago. I mean, they did like UB was like the biggest game, and 25-50, you were like, oh my God, there's like $10,000.
Do you remember when PokerStars started the 100-200 limit hold'em game?
Yeah, and you had
to have permission.
Right.
Yeah. I had to
write an email listing my credentials.
Yeah.
And then I was approved to play.
Yeah.
But now I see like frequently like Tom Dwan will be in $600,000 or $700,000 pots, and I rail them, although I do not type in the rail chat like a true rail aficionado. I beg for like $50.
Right. But people still underestimate how much bigger it is online than offline. There's just no comparison.
Well, there's so many,
just because of the speed and because of the tiltability. I mean, in terms of the swings, where people are just gonna go.
Yeah, I mean, there's big live games, but I mean, even like
I was gonna ask you.
I was talking to Barry. He said that like the big game now, it's like 1,500, 3,000 limit.
Right.
And like the big live, no limit PLO rotation game. It still doesn't get much bigger than 500 1K.
Right.
In a live setting, it's a lot smaller than it is online.
Many fewer hands per hour, just smaller.
And I think the other point, even when it was bigger, even when they were playing 4,000, 8,000, or if they're playing 1,000, 2,000, no limit or pot limit,
right.
The ability for people to control themselves in terms of tilting or going off is so much greater because live, you're going to have these natural breaks and the dealer switch and people get
online,
up
you just instantly reload, instantly get another hand.
And you never,
it's all set up that you could just
and you never even, even live, even if you're like determined to get even, which is of course the biggest trap in terms of tiltability, you're going to have to take a break to go to the bathroom or to get up, or the dealers change, and or there's they ask for a deck change. But online, it's like one after another. You don't stop.
I mean, in live poker,
they don't give you an excuse.
In live poker, there's a door right there, and you can see the door. Now, in your home, even though there is a door there, you get this. You get tunnel vision, and it's just you and a mouse and dollars.
I mean, when I get stuck, if I'm playing whatever, like I don't want to quit. I mean, I think everybody's like that.
Right.
And it's just, I mean, if you're good at playing your best game even when you're down, online works out great because, there's always going to be more tables. The live game's different. It's a lot slower. And
was it in your blog? It might have been your blog. I think it was yours, but it might have been someone else's, where they wanted to cut down on their playing because they were in a downswing for some reason. They hid the poker clients under like 16 levels of folders. Yeah, I thought that was awesome.
That's like the people who want to quit cigarettes, so they just wrap rubber bands around it.
Right, because
to get each cigarette, they have to go through a whole process or whatever.
And that's kind of what I did. Like I had to click, and like I was clicking on like menus. I had like subfolders that said "Do not click." Like if you click here or whatever, and it just it was so I had to really, really want to play.
You really have to be determined to get to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you ever hesitate to be so honest in your blog because? Now the reason your blog is so good is because you're so honest.
I've cut down.
But
I mean, if anybody that's been reading it, the last few months, I've cut down a lot. I mean, my mom and dad read my blog. My assistant reads my blog. It's just kind of weird. Like I don't think I can be as truthful and honest, and emotional with that kind of thing. So I'm still, a little bit reserved about the money thing and swings and that kind of thing around them. They don't, they don't really understand it. Yeah. It's a whole other world. And
it might just frighten them.
Yeah, like it might scare them. They'd be like, "Oh no, our son's crazy," and like I don't know. So I have toned it down a bit.
Well, what the great writers do, like Philip Roth, every book he ever wrote is really an autobiography, but it's just he calls it fiction. Yeah. So that's how you. I don't know. Maybe you can just create a character, a raptor, and still write because it's valuable stuff. I mean, I enjoy it.
Thank you.
It's been great having you talking about the meta game, meta game of poker, because that's really what it's about. But continued success, which we don't have any doubt about. We'll look for you online in the tournaments.
Or in the world doing other things, whatever you choose.
Could be. Yeah. Could be. Thanks for joining us on The Scoop, brought to you by Full Tilt Poker. Write to us at thescoop@cardplayer.com.
2 bracelets. Awesome.
Well, these aren't easy to win. I remember this one like it was yesterday. My opponent had me down to my left. Sorry. Anyway, it's down to my last few chips. So, I had to call.
We play at FullTailPoker.com.